to Drummers Only Radio. Drummers Only is the UK's leading drum shop with store locations in Glasgow and Leeds. Our podcasts are full of interviews, gear reviews, and much more from the unique perspective of a drum shop. The show is hosted by two pasty Scottish dudes who talk real fast. Whoa, slow down there, Braveheart. So here's Chris, the Glasgow shop manager, and Adam, the social media manager. Be sure to like, subscribe, and let's do this.
Drummers Only Radio, episode number 44.
With Mr.
Jake Brooksbank.
Jake
Hello.
Brooksbank in the house.
Hi, guys.
Evening.
Hi, Jake.
How we doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Yeah, good, I think.
You had your first day back open today.
We did. On the day that we're recording, we opened our doors to the public again, and it was very nice. We had some regulars come in. We had some new folk come in. So, yeah, it was a nice day.
To see people.
To see people in person.
Yeah.
2 meters away, but still face to face.
I mean, it's been pretty lonely town down there for you, man, so that must be nice.
Yeah, no, it's been good. It's been really nice to get back open. The prep for it all last week was great as well, just getting everything back displayed nicely and prettily. So I enjoyed that.
Now, I'm just going to jump in here because listeners to the podcast who have listened to every single episode so far know that Jake appeared and then mysteriously disappeared again for an episode. So Jake co-hosted an episode with myself to interview Mike Shaprari of SJC because you were away having a child at that point in time, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally almost a year ago, eh?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's bonkers.
Yeah.
So I felt like Jake never really got a proper introduction. So do you want to give us a little bit of an intro? Tell the people who you are, what you do, where you've came from, and the rest?
Yeah. It's like the introduction to Blind Date, isn't it? What's your name and where'd you come from? I like it.
Oh, that's great, man. Yeah. That's good work.
So Adam is our version of Cilla Black. Anyway, so yeah. Where do I come from? I come from a small town in West Yorkshire called Castleford. I suppose that wasn't what you were asking, but that's where we'll begin.
I mean, that's where we'll start, yeah.
I suppose job-wise, I am the English counterpart of Christopher. I run our Leeds branch with some lovely members of staff. Before this, I worked for a online musical instrument retailer in the sort of the back end offices, buy-in departments and things like that. And before that, I was a rep for a year. Then before that, I worked in a sort of multi-instrument chain company as well for a few years. So that's my CV.
You're hired.
You've done a lot, eh?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, in this industry, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, probably about 11 years, 12 years coming up to now in the MI industry.
But like the ground you've covered in that time's quite vast. None of us up here have repped or anything like that, you know.
Spent a year on the road checking out every premiere in up the M1. But repping wasn't for me, to be honest. It was, I got out of it for no other reason than the company I worked for went into administration. So I didn't choose to come out of it. But then when I had got out of it, it wasn't for me. I was away from the family a lot. And as you both know, I've got 2 small kids and a missus. So for me, being away sometimes 3, 4, 5 nights a week was not my bag. But met some amazing people along the way.
Yeah, it would be a challenge, I think, for anyone, that job, regardless of whether it is your bag or not. I think it would be quite... You know, there's only so many service station sandwiches you can eat.
Indeed. And do you know what, as well? I did put on some weight in that year. I put on some timber that year.
Were you was it a big catalogue or was it just drums?
Mostly drums. It was Percussion Plus. The company was Percussion Plus. Mainly education, did entry-level and mid-range drum kits. A lot of tuned percussion. The British-made tuned percussion that they made was phenomenal. It was absolutely incredible. Really? That was used by a lot of pros. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, the English-made stuff in Leicester. It's what you remember when Premier used to do tuned percussion. It's a couple of the guys who worked for Percussion Plus at that time had come from the Premier factory of tuned percussion over to Percussion Plus. So yeah, but there's a lot of education, and a lot of small shops as well. So you had hundreds and hundreds of accounts to try and keep up with.
Yeah, that's a lot, man. That's a lot. What transferable skills did it give you for what you do now?
It gave me, I'll tell you what, all of the positions that I've had have given me a really good perspective from different angles to this industry. So obviously, being a salesman on the shop floor, first and foremost, got that experience at PMT. Then Percussion Plus saw it from selling to people like myself, people like you, Chris, people like Paul, trying to sell gear to them. And then buying on the back end side of it for a big internet-based company. That gave me a different aspect as well, to see sort of what different things sell online versus sell in store and in person and things like that. And then coming here and doing this, is I've been able to use everything I've learned to try and do the best I can with this place.
Yeah. There's a few skills in there that I could probably do with, like, actually learning. After all this time being in this job, I think the back end number side of it would be fun to know and get a handle on all that stuff, because I think our job it feels like our job is a culmination of all of those things that you've learned.
Indeed, yeah. I think that's why I've always wanted to do this. I've always wanted to run a shop, and I think given what I've learned over the years has sort of aided me to do what I've been able to do with this shop, and sort of my input into the company has been, I suppose, what Paul wanted from me, he has got.
Well, you still have a job, so.
Exactly. We've been through a pandemic, and I am still employed, so bonus.
So I was going to ask, your experience as a manager running your own shop. Given the past year, obviously hasn't necessarily been the best example, but how have you found that experience? Because you've been on every other aspect apart from a managerial standpoint. So how have you found that?
To be fair, I found it really easy. I've took a lot of advice from my missus. My missus has managed people for a long time, and as she'll probably tell you, she's always right. So everything that I've had an issue with, or if I've been questioning my own decisions, I ask Sarah, and Sarah's helped me a lot along the way when it comes to managerial side of things. And obviously having Chris and Paul and the rest of you guys to lean on has made it easier. But I think the transition's been great. I always know what to do it. And the staff that I've employed have been fantastic as well. So I couldn't ask for more.
It's funny though, there's so many things now go into the running of a shop. I mean, when you were at Percussion Plus, you stopped in on us, didn't you?
Yeah.
So
in the
original.
It was the original one.
Yeah. Before we moved further down Commerce Street to where we moved from recently.
Yep.
So that shop versus the shop we are now is wildly different, even in that space of time.
Oh yeah.
Adam's position didn't even exist.
Yeah,
social media wasn't. I don't think Facebook was even a thing when you would have stopped off then.
I think it was a thing, but it wasn't nowhere near as powerful as what it is now.
Yeah.
Instagram, I don't think was a thing. I don't think Instagram had been culminated at that point, but
no.
But yeah, Facebook was about, but it wasn't anywhere near what it was. I mean, Adam, bless him, when I was repping, Adam was about 5.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's like 5 centimeters tall as well. You've tied that in nicely, because I guess this is going to become a round table, if you will, conversation of what our experiences in the industry have been like so far.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people, might get a lot of intel out of that, a lot of information out of that.
Yeah, I think so. I think the industry's changed dramatically. Like we said, you have a job here doing social media, which when Paul opened the shop wasn't even a consideration.
Yeah.
We turn 15 soon. So
we do, yeah.
The way the industry's changed in 15 years is kind of bonkers, sales reps don't bring catalogues to us now, and it's all done online. It's kind of crazy the way it's all changed.
Yeah, brand ambassadors, and I suppose relationship managers as well, making sure that we're both the supplier and the retailer are sort of working together to get to the same place, and they're both on the same page. And a lot of our suppliers these days, like you said, Chris, you nail on the head, used to come into a shop, pencil, paper, right, you want 4 of them, 5 of them, 6 of them, no worries. That was it. Tick it off, send it away. But now they come in and they talk about all sorts of different things, and they talk to Adam about marketing campaigns and how we can work together socially and things like that as well. So yeah, definitely brand ambassadors, relationship managers, and they do still try and sell us things. Obviously they try and sell us things.
Like the idea of like something being pre-sold just didn't exist before.
Which I find really strange, because that's the environment that I've just been experiencing, is like you buy stuff basically before you even see it.
It's crazy, like product launches would have been like customers wouldn't have seen it till they came into the shop, we didn't even have a website initially. There was no website initially when the shop opened.
Was it not like a holding page?
But there was no actual.
No, I think it was just a homepage with sort of the address, the phone number, and then a very basic email on there. That's about all that was there 15 years ago. But it's what everybody had. Nobody had these mammoth websites that people have got now. And I mean, ours is probably tiny in the grand scheme of like Amazon and eBay and sites like that. But our site's grown ridiculous amounts over the past 10, 15 years.
Oh, absolutely. We were talking to Jared Falk about Dromeo, and he was talking about they've got something like 5,000 hours of content on their back end,
which is insane. Like that's a crazy amount of content.
But if you imagine that being you imagine each slice of content being a SKU. So DW Parts alone could rinse about a third of that, and having to house all that in one place, and then you add Gibraltar spares and then every other thing that floats around
before you've even got to a snare drum.
The amount that we have to hold or the amount we have to catalogue and make and keep on top of and all that stuff.
And there's always that one customer who will find that one part, and it's the one part that you've not got listed. Just them's the breaks.
Absolutely. So then, okay, well, what's your experience been like? Because you're the newest in the game, really, if you like. Jake's been doing it 10 or 11. I've been here 15 or so. So what's your experience like?
Well, my experience is probably going to be very similar to a lot of people who go from customer of drum shop to then working in drum shop. Like, it's obviously very different from how you imagine it. Because again, and we've spoke to people on this podcast that are like I asked these questions to reps, and we had Ian on from Tama, because it was a question I would have asked a drum shop. Do you get your drums literally from, do you phone up Japan or China and just be like, I'll have a Star Classic please, or because you just don't know, you don't see that side of it.
No.
So for me, coming in and learning, you actually people from these companies actually come to the shop, and the representatives and all that stuff, which I've never worked in a shop before, so I'm assuming that's pretty basic stuff. I imagine my mum used to work in a newsagents, and it was the same for the people who brought in the confectionery and all that kind of stuff. So, but I never quite put those two things together in my head.
It depends on where you worked, because I worked for Topshop, Top Man, and it was still a delivery truck turned up and brought deliveries in. There was no sales rep, because it was all made for them.
Yeah, I think the difference between those sort of companies is that's like the top shops, the H&M, the Primarks, those sort of clothing companies. They have a big wholesale sort of entity that will send everything that's just got a Topshop label sewn into the back, and they will just go, right, there's 100 shops, split that evenly between 100 shops. Whereas shops like us, because we're independents, and like you say, with newsagents, it's the same. I've got a friend who owns a newsagent, and he gets the rep from Coca-Cola and like Wrigley's and companies like that. They come to the newsagents and if there's a deal on, or if they've got a new product coming out and stuff like that. It does happen in other industries, but they're not in others as well.
Yeah. I guess if it's own brand, it's like Apple don't have no sales reps.
Exactly.
They are just selling.
No.
So I found that straight side of it really not as in oh, this is weird, but just you never quite put those two scenarios in your head, but obviously when you're in it, it makes perfect sense. So there's that side of it. I mean, obviously, again, a lot of my experience was coming in to see you guys if I needed new gear. So it's nice being on the other side of that as well. It's nice being on like, well, if I try and put myself in a customer's shoes a lot, which is obviously what you guys would do to me when I was a customer, like just like, well, what do you actually need? And I think it's quite easy when you're in a retail environment like this to just, you know, instinctively try and just sell them something that maybe is like, okay, that's been there for a while, or, oh, like, you know, this is expensive, or people might think that way anyway. Whereas we obviously make a very, very valid and big point of just being like, what do you need?
Yeah, it's kind of marrying customers' needs with the right product.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes that can take a minute to get to.
Yeah.
Sometimes people don't know what they want, or they have an idea of what they want, and then they explain it, and it's the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Like when all the cymbal companies started doing super dry cymbals, everybody wanted them, and then like a year later realised that they couldn't be heard over the band they were playing in. You know, I've seen customers. I've gone out and seen customers playing gigs just accidentally with cymbals that just weren't necessarily the most appropriate for what they were trying to achieve, but that's the sound they want.
Yeah. To be on the other side of that coin, like, I think that's quite a learning curve. Certainly for me as well, from having no retail experience, to be on that side of the fence where you know instinctively, like, oh, this cymbal would work great for you, or there's a snare drum that will, you know, it sounds like it will exactly fit what you're looking for, you know. So that's been a challenge, but, you know, how much of that has changed for you guys over the years in terms of like the selling experience?
Well, I think the for me, I don't know about Jake, but for me the core principle is the same. Someone has a need, you have to fulfill that need with the product. But what's really changed is, one, the pace of it. It moves so quick now. Two, the way people shop is very different. You had 2 payment options, maybe 3 initially: cash, card, and maybe finance. We didn't do Part X for the first few years, so you couldn't part exchange gear for a while because you need to have a license and all these things to do that. So
See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so for the first however long, we didn't do part exchange. So then that became new, and that started to be a thing we looked at. And you know, the way people think about what is new and what isn't, and the condition of their gear, and that kind of negotiation changed. People trying to buy through Instagram, and they don't, like, young kids don't want to talk to you on the phone. They would much rather like just, you know, navigate a screen, and it takes you 3 or 4 times as long to get to the core of what they're looking for, because they might not know how to explain themselves. There's so many different things. Whereas before it was someone came in and was like, I'm looking for a China. What have you got? Well, what kind of sound? This kind of sound. We have these 3 or 4, and you would put them in a demo room. They would try them out, and they would typically buy one. You know, but so for me, it's the way people shop is vastly different. You know, vastly different. They don't even. I mean, right now they can't come into Glasgow. So today I had a customer drop me a message to say, "Can I send you a track? I'm looking for this kind of sound. What do you have in stock that would do it?" So I'm selling somebody a cymbal through my phone without them hearing it, and it's just that they trust me enough to think to make the decision. You know, so that's wildly different. Events.
Oh, that's awesome! I want that challenge. I want one of my customers to do that to me. That sounds
I
challenging.
I will forward you the message.
We should see if we suggest the same product.
Yeah. I'll send that to you. Done.
I like it.
Your challenge is also one of the most fascinating things I ever saw probably in the first couple of weeks of working in a drum shop was, I can't remember if it was you, Chris, or if it may have been Liam at the time, but you managed to sell someone a wood block by playing the wood block down the phone.
Oh, I mean, we've done that that's
like that. I've seen some pretty amazing shit in my time, but that was pretty phenomenal. Like, that was awesome.
I mean, yeah, sometimes these are the conversations you have to have with people.
Yeah.
You know,
this is exactly how things have developed, Chris. So you sold it playing a woodblock down a phone a few years ago, and now we actively get requests, sometimes daily, to produce high quality audio files and videos of playing cymbals and snares and kits, all the pre-owned stuff we've got. We get requests for video content of that. So
Absolutely.
that's a good point in how it's evolved.
Yeah,
People
yeah.
are shopping by that. They're seeing things and going, do you know what? Like you say, up until only today, nobody could come into either of our shops. So get an email and it'd be like, right, I've seen this snare drum. I want it, but I need to know what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
So then we get our EAD out, we get a camera out, we film it, we send it to them, and then they go, yep, that's what I need.
Yeah. I mean, what's great about all that is that they're buying something through the sound of it. Because, I mean, how many times have you sold a kit, Jake or Adam, because it looks good?
How many times have I bought a kit because it looks good?
Exactly. So,
I'm
like,
guilty.
At least people are like, how does it sound? You know, does it?
Yeah.
Because, you know, especially when you're selling entry level at Christmas time, and you've got, you know, mums and dads coming in going, that one would go with the couch, literally. Oh,
Yeah.
all right, okay.
Cool. That's the winner today. Yep.
Do you have it in brown because that's how my walls are decorated? Like,
You decorate. Wait.
no.
Who?
Listen, there's brown.
Sorry. Decoration talk here, right? Who decorates a wall brown? Like, who does that? Sorry if you've got your
It's
wall
all right.
painted brown. I'm really sorry.
When Gail and I bought a house, the carpets in it are brown.
Are they really?
Yeah,
Oh,
they're not very nice.
What's the nicest brown kit you've ever seen?
A Barnwood Brown Pearl Session series and Barnwood Brown. There you go.
Oh.
Nicest brown kit I've seen was the Tennessee Whiskey Classic Oak that we had in. That was stunning.
Touche.
I see your Tennessee Oak, and I'm not going to raise you because it's not in the same caliber, but Yamaha Tour Custom in chocolate stain.
Yeah,
It's
Pro
pretty
Light and
nice, I
Chocolate
think.
Burrow's quite nice.
Chocolate Burrow.
But yeah, then like talking like events, the way they're done now is massively different. You know, the last clinic tour we had was Eddie Thrower and Marco Miniman, two
Yeah.
events in one. You know, when we first opened, we would maybe do like 1 or 2 clinics a year. Now it's one of the ways that brands will sell you gear.
Yeah.
Like they'll do a product launch on a clinic tour. You know. Was a year when we did like 10 clinics or something crazy.
Bonkers.
Something 1 a month nearly, you know.
Yeah.
So that's very different. So yeah, I don't know about you. What about you, mate? How do you think it's changed really? 'Cause even from the way you used to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it has. I totally agree with you. I think the fundamentals of it are the same. If people want something, we're kind of lucky because we're probably what's classed as the luxury retail industry. You don't need to own a classic maple. You don't need to own a full set of Byzance cymbals. You don't need any of those things. It is what you want, and it is what people aspire to own, things like that. So we're lucky in that sense. And that's why the fundamentals of it has not really changed. But yeah, definitely the way people shop. For us to still have these big physical stores, we have to be immersive. We have to be a destination for people to want to come in. We have to have the demo rooms available. We have to have the events that you spoke about, Chris, and things like that to keep us trading the way that we trade and to keep us being in the forefront of the drummers that shop with us as minds. Again, like you said, the reason that Adam's job was created was because Facebook and Instagram became so prominent that it's definitely a person's full-time job to manage those things. You can't just sort of do it. I mean, we struggle when Adam goes on holiday for 2 weeks, and me and you have got a shop each to run and to try and do the socials at the same time is a nightmare these days because of how much effort needs to go into that. So those sort of things have changed. And like you say, I 100% agree. Nobody of a certain age wants to talk on the phone anymore. I still love a good chat. I absolutely love a phone call. I think you can get so much done in a 2-minute phone call that would take 2-3 days over email, backwards and forwards, replying when you've got time, and then you go and do something else and blah, 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 blah. And then you come back, you miss a notification because you swipe it off by accident and things like that. So, yeah, the fundamentals have stayed the same. The way people shop has definitely changed, but we've adapted really well to that, if I do say so myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think so much tone can be missed on email as well. Like
Or tone can be misinterpreted as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You might not get someone's humour, or it's a very, very strange way to try and to do business at times. But I guess that's just it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just
What do you think's the next evolution?
Drones. We are going to deliver snare drums via drone.
That would be pretty rad.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
It would.
I don't know what
shit for the person trying to catch it.
It's better than storks and babies. I don't know.
What do you mean? Why? What's wrong with stocks and babies?
Nothing's wrong with it, but trying to catch my kid was a challenge.
Yeah. You see, kids. I always got told kids banned, so I just let mine.
I think. Yeah, I was never told that.
Well, I'm learning a lot here, guys. I'm not gonna lie.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
I don't know what the evolution is. I don't know, because I think there's still, and I think there always will be, a contingent of drummers that will want to come to a bricks and mortar store. If you're buying a Istanbul Agop 30th anniversary cymbal and you take a punt on the internet, it's a 500, 600 quid cymbal that you're taking a gamble on. So I think there's always going to be a necessity for people to try the gear, regardless of how technical or how advanced or how consistent it gets. That's still going to want to happen. So I think there'll always be a need for it. Whether brands continue to need stores will be different. I don't know. There's thoughts of brands selling directly to consumers, but they will still need a place to go and test it.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it happens in the States. You've got brands like Fender, for example. Fender guitars sell direct to end users in the States, but companies like Sweetwater and Guitar Center, they still sell mammoth amounts of Fender guitars because people aren't allowed to go to the Fender factory to try them. But Sweetwater and Guitar Center have got stores all over the States for people to go and try them. So they still survive. I think if it, like you say, Chris, I think if it went down that road, I think we'd still survive as well, because we've got the knowledge, we've got the staff, we've got the space, we've got the gear for people to come in, try, hear, and walk away with.
Yeah, and I think that the beauty of a drum shop is it's always going to be sort of viewed as an authority. So, people like parents come to us because, you're right, Jake, we have the knowledge. How many conversations have we all had with a parent who's buying a drum kit for the first time, who would be lost, absolutely lost, and buy the wrong thing or buy the wrong size, or, and a drum kit would end up sitting in a cupboard not getting used because they just didn't really know what to buy. It's a pretty overwhelming thing buying an instrument like that the first time you do it, especially, if it was a stringed instrument. Imagine buying a cello. They're really, really, really expensive. So, you need to have someone that understands how they're made and why it's expensive and what strings are on it and how all that works. You can't just take a punt,
Here's a question for you both, right? What is your experience of going into a musical instrument retailer in a different country? Or have you got one? Because I'll give you mine. I went to Guitar Center in New York City, and obviously, like Guitar Centers, which I'm sure is the case for all of them, but they don't just sell guitars. Like, they have like a drum department and all that kind of stuff, and it's a really, really weird experience, I felt, because maybe it's just because it's I looked in the drum section and there was a guy in charge of the drum department, but he really, really didn't seem into the whole thing at all. Like, this was before I obviously worked here and didn't know really the differences, because I just assumed it was like you walk in, you look at the stuff for a while, like, unlike the experience I've had here where I could come in, if I want to try a cymbal I can do so. Like, you almost feel a bit, in my experience I felt a bit like, should I be allowed to play this? Like, they had a sign, it was on a Roland TD50, and they had a sign on it saying, please limit your playing on this to like 5 minutes. And all that, and I'm like, if you think about the Roland TD50, which is like a $7,000 kit, like, and if you were in to buy that kit and you only had 5 minutes to play it and try and figure out everything that's going on before you made that decision, Like, that's not a lot of time at all.
It's really not. If you can figure out a TD50 in 5 minutes, you should be working here.
Or for Roland.
Or for Roland, yeah.
Or for Roland, yeah, definitely for Roland.
Yeah.
My only experience of getting into a music instrument shop in any other country was in Canada when I was about 18.
Right.
And I was a bit like kid in a candy shop. I didn't really... I don't remember being very discerning about it all. I was just walking about like, what is all this? Is amazing, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously Canada is where Sabian are made, so Sabian were a huge deal over there. There was loads of them on the wall, and I bought myself a splash cymbal, and it was just a great experience. But I've heard some interesting horror stories, you know.
Well, when I first went to Guitar Centre, like my first experience of walking in the drum department, I saw the TD50 set up with the 5-minute time limit sign on it. And I saw I think it was a PDP kit, but it was in the corner of the shop, and like they had a price tag next to it, but no heads were on the bass drum. Like all the drums were inside of the bass drum shell. Like they could have easily, like, if it's obviously someone just put it there just with no attention, no care whatsoever, just threw it there, and would just like still put the full price sale ticket next to it. I was like, man, really? That's like, yeah, I don't work in a drum shop. Maybe if I worked in a drum shop one day, I would do things differently. Here we are.
Well, I think like the way people buy in the States is different. They don't like. I've spoke to people about it. Like they kind of expect the heads to be played and stuff. They're not really that precious about the original heads being played on the kit. I heard a rumor, and Jake, you might be able to tell me if this is true or I'm talking mince, that one of the reasons DW have crimped heads on their kits is because John Good did a tour of like music shops, and all the DW kits were horrendously out of tune. They just weren't being looked after in these big places, so they put heads on them that guitarists can tune.
No, I heard that as well. I think we probably got told it by the same person.
Probably.
So yeah,
Probably.
I'm under the impression that is true.
Yeah. So, you know, and I mean, even in the UK, some of the chain stores might not necessarily have drummers working in the drum department.
When I worked at a chain store, it was the same. If I was the only drum specialist at that chain store. So if I had a day off or if I went on holiday, it was somebody else. Yeah, most of them knew bits and bobs about drums, but they weren't a specialist per se. But they had to step in to my role whenever I wasn't there.
Yeah. And I mean, there may be did you ever have to cover the guitar floor?
Yeah. I mean, look, to be fair, I used to cover guitars and PA because I haven't in a while, but I used to do a bit of sound engineering. So I got to know PA quite well. And I play guitar as well. So I sort of fell into that on their days off. But in chain stores, you look at the numbers of guitars that they sell compared to drums, it's ridiculous. So there will always be more guitar salesmen kicking about these shops in any country than there will be drum specialists.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we've all got guitarist friends who've got 8, 9, 10 guitars. We don't own 8, 9, 10 drum kits.
No.
Maybe 8, 9, 10 snare drums, but
yeah, for sure. That's our guitar. But some guitarists will own 8, 9 guitars that are like $2,500 each.
Yeah,
and things like that. Whereas we might own 4 or 5 snare drums, one of which will cost £1,000, and then the others will be like 600, 500, 400 sort of thing. It's easier for us to own more snare drums.
And then you'll get some of those guitarists who buy a $3,500 guitar and stick it in the freezer to relic it.
Oh,
I'm like, our comparison is, can you imagine sticking a 10-inch rack tom from a PHX in a freezer to relic it? Like,
no.
Do you know what I mean? That's just a disrespectful thing to all 5 of those guys who worked to build that drum. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think if we put anything like that on our social media saying that we'd done that, I think Yamaha would close our account.
Yeah,
I don't think we'd be allowed to sell Yamaha drums anymore.
What's your experience of being in an instrument store in a foreign country?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's just because I work in MI, so when I'm abroad, if I'm on holiday or anything like that, I don't necessarily actively steer clear of them, but I don't think I've been looking for them as such. But I did go on a dealer trip a few years ago where I ended up going into a music store in Cologne. And that is a very nice shop, don't know if you've ever seen any of the pictures of it or anything like that. It's a lovely, lovely music shop. And the staff in there were awesome. They were fantastic. I told them that I was in the industry so that they didn't have to sort of waste mammoth amounts of time trying to sell me anything when I was just there to have a look around. But they embraced that. They showed me around and they said, "Oh, do you want to see anything else? Would you like a coffee?" and things like that. They were lovely, lovely people over there. And the store is stunning. It is a very, very nice shop.
I think there's also been a real kind of renaissance, if you will, in shops like Revival Drum Store and those kind of smaller, more boutique stores in the US and stuff that are trying to make it a bit more hip. You know, it's not as faceless as a multi-chain. You know, so I would like to see something like that. I think that would be quite cool.
If I was ever anywhere near Chicago, I would go to Chicago Drum Exchange for sure, because I've followed those guys on social media for years, and the gear, I don't know whether it's just how good they are at taking pictures or the lighting or the cameras they use or something, but it just looks ridiculously cool, and it looks like they stock some of the most amazing, like one-off pieces of playable art is what it almost looks like.
I'd like to see the drum centre of Portsmouth.
Yeah, looks good. Looks good.
Yeah, so I guess that's but my experience of it, you know.
What about, so when you've been here, so like factory trips, have you got any, I mean, because you guys obviously went to when you guys went to Vickforth and Zildjian, you know, Jake, you went to China and Japan for Yamaha as well?
Did, yeah. That was insane. That was an incredible experience that had not been working in this industry, I would have not been able to, I don't think I would have ever been able to experience that. It was phenomenal. We got to see the Chinese factory where everything apart from PHX is made. So we watched, I saw a guy lacquering a recording custom tom in Surf Green, and we saw the factory is on a few different levels, and I think it was the second level was the brass and woodwind part of the factory. The detail, the quality control, everything that goes into making those things as well is insane. It's absolutely amazing. The way that their staff are treated is fantastic. They get all sorts of stuff for free. They get all sorts of breaks. There's just like a whistle will just go off and the entire factory will just down tools and just go for a chat and go and have 5 minutes sat down if they've been on a standing position, and vice versa. If you're on a seated position, you'll get told, right, you've been sat down too long now, go and have a wander around. Wow. And it's brilliant that when the whole, I don't know, you'll remember it, Chris, when Yamaha went from everything being Japanese made to Chinese made, you had the purists and the traditionalists going, "Oh, it's all made in China now. It's not as good as the Japanese stuff," and all that. And it's just rubbish. It's a load of rubbish, because the drums that they are producing are phenomenal. Yeah, absolutely. And then we went to the Phoenix factory, which I don't know if you can call it a factory. It's more like a hut with four or five of the best craftsmen that you could imagine in the world. These guys have been building drums with their bare hands for about 40 years, and they come from a line of like 6 descendants of theirs were drum builders. So you're the only people in Japan that are allowed to make Phoenix are you 4 guys. Wow. Which is why customers, a Phoenix takes so long to be built. Yes. Because they're making it in a room that's probably 20 foot wide with 4 guys doing everything by hand. But that was impressive. That was very impressive. The way that they join the plies and seal the shells and everything about it from start to finish is so detailed. And so impressive, and the little paint shop that they've got at the end is like a tiny little factory, sort of belt line almost, not literally, but that's the way sort of it moves. You start the drum here, and then it goes here, and then it goes here, and then it gets painted, and then it gets drilled, and then there's your drum, But that for one drum, that process can take like 8 days.
Wow.
For one drum to be finished. And everybody was lovely. The entire company welcomed us immensely. We got welcomed at one point with an entire brass band stood outside of one of the factories, welcoming us with music.
Wow.
It was fantastic.
I mean, yeah, that sounds pretty rad.
It was.
Yeah,
It was incredible.
In terms of that stuff, I've been to NAMM. The NAMM show was cool. I think I went to one of the last NAMMs before selling online and the way we're sold to online happened. You know, it was the year that the Demon Drive pedal was released. So I think it was 2009. I think. So that was a pretty strange experience. I was there on my own, so apart from I knew the sales reps that I was there to see, so everybody that I spoke to who was on any stand that I was there to do business with, I knew from being in here. So the guys that were selling Tama and the guys at Yamaha and all that, I knew all those guys, but I'm like traveling on my own and stuff. So that was a very, very strange experience, but a wonderful experience, you know.
What year was that?
I think it was 2009.
2009.
Yeah, so it was the year there was a really, really, really cold winter. It was the January, and I was delayed and all sorts, but ended up flying business class because I had to fly instead of flying from Glasgow to LA, or sorry, Glasgow to London to LA. I flew from Glasgow to London to Washington to LA because I missed my flight. But the guy who was flying from London to Washington sat beside me on the flight from Glasgow to London, and it transpired that I taught drums to his son's pal.
Ah, okay.
So they upgraded my seat for me and all that, which was pretty amazing. The flight, the flight from Washington to LA was on a discount Ryanair metal bus in the sky. It was horrendous.
Oh, man.
I went from like the best experience to literally the planes in the air, and the cabin crew are still telling people to get off the phone.
Wow.
You know, you're just like. This poor lassie just looked stressed out or nut trying to actually deal with this entire cabin of morons that were trying to make phone calls while a plane was taking off.
Oh, brilliant.
Poor
man.
girl, man. It was not.
Yeah, she was not having a good time.
And I'd accidentally blagged my way into the show before anybody else. I walked in the doors at 9 o'clock in the morning before the show was opened, and I thought it was opened. I was like, oh, this is great. It's quite busy. And then that was not busy, you know, because it just gets mental.
At which point the floodgates just open.
Yeah, so I was kind of just walking around the drum hall, just like, this is amazing, before anyone else was there.
Yeah. So you got over it really quickly.
I mean, you think that it's loud when you do the UK drum shows. Nah, man.
Nah, nothing.
Because there's the guitar hall next door, and it's just chaos. Mm-hmm. Absolute chaos. And everybody that sits down to play is amazing. So it's very strange. So you're trying to do business. So they end up the way they would do it is they would have like a separate little not a hut, but you know it would be where you would go to do your business would be soundproofed so that you
like
could
a booth.
Yeah, thank you. That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
So it would be soundproofed, and you would be able to actually have a conversation.
Yeah.
You know, the trips are great. I mean, that's where I met Jake. We met on a Peril trip.
Yeah.
To see some of the new gear recently in Germany, you know.
I have a very nice caricature of Chris and I that got done on a boat. We were a few beers deep by this point, and there was a caricature on the boat. We were sat next to each other having a chat, and she says, "Do you guys want a drawing?" We said, "Yeah, for sure." Yeah. So she sits down, does this awesome little caricature. I'm going to get it framed, in fact.
Yeah.
I'm going to get it framed, and I'm going to put it somewhere in the shop, and I'll put it on the socials when I do, because it looks like Chris and I are being intimate. Let's say it's. When Chris knows what I mean, because obviously he was there and he saw the picture. But when you all see the picture and when you see it, Adam, you will understand exactly what I mean when it says that. When I say that, it looks like we're being intimate. But we met on that trip. It was a fantastic trip. We had an awesome time.
We were there.
One of my drumming idols was there.
Is that Ian Pace?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's right. I forgot about that. He was such a cool dude.
He was awesome. I mean, when he played Highway Star to the track, that wasn't recorded to a click. He didn't have a click in his ear. He didn't have in-ears in. He just had a wedge monitor at the side of him playing a drumless track, blaring into his ear. And he didn't drop a beat, didn't go out of time with the track. He was just phenomenal.
He's in his 70s now?
Yeah. And then later on in the evening, they had a function band playing, which were one of the most amazing group of musicians I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Sasha Wack played drums for them, who is awesome.
Yeah.
In fact, you should get Sasha for a podcast. He is awesome.
I don't know why that hasn't occurred to me before, but yes, absolutely.
Me neither.
Absolutely.
So that band that was playing, I think Sasha's wife was the singer as well. I think she fronted that band.
She did, that's right, yeah.
And then they played Hush by Deep Purple, and Ian got up and played with the function blend.
That's right.
And he controlled the band perfectly as well. He's drumming away, and then he tells the bass player to just like bring it down a bit, and then they slow it down, and then he goes batshit because he's fucking awesome. And it was incredible. I love that man so much. I love his playing.
He's got a ridiculous set of hands on him for a guy of his age, man.
Yeah.
Because he played Burn as well. Do you know what I remember? And it was just all those single stroke roll fills were all still there. Because I think it was a live version of Burn he played. Like, Jings, man, that boy
could have been.
He's still got it all there. We were on that boat with loads of other UK industry as well, like shops. I mean, and just relating to that to an earlier question, that's a thing I think that's changed. That shops communicate to each other now.
Oh yeah. We're in touch with most of the other UK shops. I mean, we speak to the guys at Drum Depot, Graham Russell, Sound Attack,
even
Drum
PMT.
Shop. Yeah. Speak to Nathan from PMT quite often. Any of them, if they ever phoned us up for anything, we'd always be on the other end of the phone because
Rattle and Drum just the last week, both we scratched each other's back on some hoops for some customers. It's just, I think the market's too small now for all that, eh? For not being able to do that.
I would much rather have a relationship with another shop where we can help each other out than trying to outdo each other and trying to just win customers, bum fight to the bottom. It's just like, it's so much easier to be on better terms with everybody.
And I mean, when Jake and I met, Jake wasn't working for us.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So, we ended up with a great relationship with him. He was working elsewhere, So
I think we fell in love over a caricature.
Yeah.
And then
a train journey.
We renewed those vows in the States over Dunkin' Donuts as well.
That's right.
So jealous, man.
Yeah. So
not that it vows the donuts.
These trips are great for all that community vibe. Yeah. You know what I mean? And falling in love on trains and stuff.
Well, 100% agree with that because my first visit to a factory with the shop was with Jake, and it was to the Mino factory.
Yeah. What was it?
So that was amazing. Like me, Jake and Joe from Mino. Jake and Joe. We had a great time. We had a great relationship. It's something like we still talk about now. Whenever I speak to Joe on the phone, it's always hey Bray. Like just in jokes from those trips that no one else gets. That was their two's jokes. I wasn't really in on that. That is a lie. You were definitely in on it. By the time we were flying home, you were fully embraced. You're fully immersed in it. Don't even lie. Yeah, I was embraced because you two were just saying it constantly over and over, so I felt left out. I had no other thing to do. That trip was intense though because it was quick. It was a quick trip. You were up. We went to the airport. We stayed at the airport. We woke up early as hell to get onto a plane. We then got picked up by Lorenz at the airport. Then went straight to the Mino factory. Because Mino are the German distributor for Tama, so we saw a load of Tama gear whilst we were there as well. Then we saw some new Mino products, and then we had a research meeting, and then we had a sales meeting, and then we went to the hotel, had half an hour to get ourselves sorted, went out for food, went to bed, woke up, went back to the Mino. It was one of those trips that was just one thing after another, which was finished by, what would you say, about 6
6 or 7 hours of hitting cymbals.
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. Which, like, the whole trip to me just felt like one giant day. Like, because for me, it started like, I think we went, I can't remember which day we went specifically, but I remember I left Glasgow to get a train all the way down to Leeds because there was no point driving. Met Jake at Leeds, went to your house, and then we went to the hotel and stuff. And it just felt as though the next time I went to bed was in a hotel again in Leeds. Like, to then go into the shop the next day. It's like, oh man, like 48 hours later.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, they are they're typically lots of fun, but I think people don't realise that they can be hard work too. Like when we were in Boston, there was some pretty serious sales meetings that we were sat through. Like we had 3 or 4 different people from the Zildjian company wanted to talk to us about 3 or 4 different facets of the market. So you've been travelling for 10, 12 hours and then have to have a meeting on a different time zone about actual crucial things. You know, factory tour aside, all the sexy stuff aside, you still have to do the business part of it, which can be it can be taxing because you are pretty exhausted, like traveling all the other side of the world for it, you know. So
and especially because you're trying to drink in the experience as well, and you know, with all that going on, I found that when we went to Minel, I found that really difficult to separate those two because I'm still just like looking around, just jaw on the floor, like wow, we're here. And like obviously if you're experienced in doing that stuff, I mean they get international sale reps doing that all the time, you know, so they're used to that format.
Well, I don't know that anybody will ever get used to going to a factory because I mean it's so few and far between.
Yeah, no, but what I mean is like they get used to like having just come off a 7-hour flight, going straight into a meeting, you know, and be switched on and ready to go. You know, whereas, you know, for people like us who don't necessarily do it all the time, it can be quite a strange experience. You know?
Yeah.
But maybe I'm just not very good at it.
Oh, I mean, it's you know, it's all about what information you have. You know, like we had to talk to the Zildjian guys about the market and where Zildjian saw themselves in the market in the UK versus where we saw them in the market in the UK and these kind of things. And it's so varied. You know, Jake was selling online and didn't have the customer in-store experience that we had, but we didn't have the online side of it that he had. So he might say, well, a custom is selling really well, and we're like, really? Wow, it's funny because we've not sold as many in the last 6 months. You know what I mean? That kind of, that's a bad example, but you get the idea.
No, I get it, yeah.
Yeah, the information that you gain on these trips is great, like you say, from other people. And we've been on several trips where there's been other shops from around the world. Like when Paul and I went to China and Japan, there was people there from Germany and Spain.
It was the same in
couple of
Germany.
other places in Europe.
Yeah, but the Peril thing was the same. All the EU dealers were there.
Yeah. So like we were talking Yamaha with the guys from Tam Tam. Don't know if have you seen them on Instagram or anything like that? They're huge. They're a massive percussion shop in Spain. But I'd not heard of them until I met them. Lovely guys, really great set of guys. In fact, one of the guys who was on the Yamaha trip with us is a sonar artist. And I'm not sure if he still works at Tam Tam, but he's a phenomenal player and he's all over their Instagram. So check him out. I think he plays Pro Light drums now.
Amazing.
But anyway, that's nonetheless like gaining information from other countries that how differently they sell things. You can pick up little nuggets and think, do you know what, we can't sort of do exactly that, but we can use part of that information to better the experience for our customers. And that's what these trips are all about. They're about the brand who brings you out there, gaining market research from the sellers, not just the market research they get from the consumers and the end users. Everybody getting all this information together just means that they can service the end user better. We can service the end user with the help from the brands as well. So they're well beneficial.
It's interesting as well because, you know, I'm sure you've experienced this as well, Jake, and you definitely have, Chris, but we'll sometimes get customers come in here and ask specifically why one cymbal is so expensive, you know, and having the knowledge, like if we've actually seen, well, you know, I've been to the Zildjian factory or I've been to the Minel factory and I've saw like literally this cymbal come from being just unlathed and just literally blank to now a finished product, and explaining to them that whole process. Like I think it can really kind of put people in. Not people. The phrase "put people in their places" is the wrong phrase, but you know what I mean. It justifies to people like, well, that's where the money for that is really went. That's why it's so expensive.
It gives them the right perspective.
That's it, yeah, puts the price into perspective. I'll tell you what did it for me, and me and Chris have spoken about this because it was when we were there together, when we went to the Vic Firth factory.
Yeah.
And you drive, we were sat on a bus, and I'm thinking at the first, right, okay, we're going to a little wood shop in Maine, we'll see some drumsticks be made. Yeah, be cool. It's not. It's an absolute mammoth thing, like the building that they have to house the raw sticks in squared pieces of wood that's climate controlled to a very specific temperature before they even think about what size or style of stick they're going to be. It's friggin' huge.
It's about the size of the shop, eh?
Oh, it's got to be bigger.
Yeah,
got to be bigger.
Massive.
Yeah, it's huge. Absolutely. And you walk in, we were on the ton, they go, all right, okay, we can open the door, walk in and see how warm it is. Yeah. You walk in and the humidity just smacks you in the face. It's like, whoa, okay, didn't realize this happened. And then you see the way that they make sticks. You see the way that they paint sticks. And all the effort that goes into it. There's a woman that works there, and she'd worked there something like 25, 26 years or something daft like that. And she was the woman who, she didn't use scales for weight matching sticks. She'd done it that long that she could pick up a pair of sticks and go, okay, they are 140. And then you'd put them on the scales and they'd be 140.
Yes.
Wow.
And she was the one who put them into buckets. You'd have like, because in a set of 12, you have 2 from this end, 2 from that end, and a mixture of the in-between in a brick. And then, like you say, a customer comes in and goes, oh, can't believe sticks are £10.99 a pair.
I know, it's wild. It's wild.
But like you say, Adam, though, we've got that experience now to say to them, £10.99 is nothing for what that stick has been through in its life to get to your hands,
I mean,
to create the music
that you love.
Yeah. Well, they're controlling the moisture. They've got the moisture control content down to something like 6% moisture or something. They've dialed in enough to know how to dry the wood to the right point before they then make it a drumstick. And then and everything that all the wood that they cast off goes back into reheating the building through the winter. So they don't waste anything. They're completely not only for carbon neutral, but they self-regulate like that. So they don't waste anything. Yeah. Even the crap that comes out of it is a bare minimum, and they sell that off to a recycling company that use it for something else.
That's wild. Wow.
Yeah. No, it's a very impressive facility that they've got there. I mean, I think one of the most hilarious things is as well, there's a guy with a job title there whose job title is butt dabber. So he was a lovely guy. And basically, when Vic Firth or Zildjian have their sticks painted, they dip them into a big pot of paint. And this guy's job was to dab the butts of the sticks so that it didn't leave sort of a big blob of paint hanging off. And his job title today, he is butt dabber.
I totally forgot about that, man. I totally forgot about that. And then like how they paint where the tip of the stick is to make sure it's lacquered is they basically put them in a big tumble dryer with these tiny little ball pellets of paint, and they just spin it. And these little balls coat the stick properly so that it gets in all the nooks and crannies of the stick, so it's evenly coated and all that. It's a total. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. I remember the guy. I can't remember his name. When he took his job over at Vic Firth, he couldn't understand why they pitch matched everything, and he thought it was a waste of time and money. And he was trying to get them. I don't know if he was trying to get them to stop doing it, but he was like, he can't. You know, why do we pitch match and weight match? And somebody eventually explained to them, if you're 10 years old and you are taking up drums for the first time and you have a practice pad and you're practicing a double stroke roll, you could be practicing it perfectly, but if your sticks are pitched differently, it'll sound different. You'll get a different fundamental note from each stick. So that'll teach you to do it wrong. You'll end up learning a bad habit to make it sound right. He's like, okay, cool, got you. And as soon as he put it in a context, he totally he got behind the science, and it was amazing to listen to all these stories about how these people came to be as good at their job as they are.
Yeah.
Amazing. It was a great 4-hour drive, man. The lobster, though.
It was. Oh, the lobster place was fantastic.
Oh, yeah. It was like something out of The Office.
They made great milkshakes at that place.
They did.
It really was, yeah. It was like they'd gone back in time to 1975 to this random cafe in the middle of nowhere that only served lobster sandwiches in hot dog buns.
Yeah. And there was like maybe 10 of us from the UK all turning around begging to be taken to the Five Guys across the road, like, because we don't want to eat with our grands pals, because that was all that populated this place. Pretty amazing. Good times, man. Fun times. Fun times.
Yeah,
so there you go. That's my experience so far of working in the job.
Yeah, me too. And I'm excited to see what other experiences there are ahead. Obviously, Jake,
Indeed.
you guys have now opened up back there now. By the time this comes out, you'll have been open a few weeks, I think.
Yeah.
And we in Glasgow will be
hopefully open.
Yeah.
By that point.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Hopefully.
So yeah, thanks very much for coming on tonight, man.
No worries. Thanks you for having me. It's been nice to shoot the shit.
I know we've tried to do this before, and this is it getting lined up eventually, So, yeah, we should have you on. We'll talk rubbish about something completely different next time.
We should do this more often, guys.
Mm-hmm.
We should. You are correct. Well, there's some guests I've got my eye on in the pipeline that I think would be great for either Chris and Jake to tag team, or myself and Jake to tag team.
Sounds good.
I'm not going to say any more than that, mainly because things haven't been confirmed.
And as soon as I'm allowed to Glasgow, I want to get in on this wherever you'll be on the screen.
The backdrop.
I want to get involved in this beautiful purple backdrop the next time I'm up there as well.
100%.
Yeah, do it, man. Do it as soon as we can.
So, Jake, if people want to follow you personally on the socials, where can they find you?
Instagram.
Okay.
Just your name?
Just my name. I am on Instagram. It's jake.brooksbank on Instagram.
Jake has a wicked camper van
that's it.
that you guys should all check out.
Oh yeah,
as
he's
well.
got a good camper van chat.
Yeah.
Trixie.
Yeah. Our Trixie, she costs me a fortune, but she's a labour of love. She is.
She's going to look.
That's a good one to follow.
She's going to look great when she's decked out, man.
Yeah, we're getting there. It's just a slow burner, man. It's just the amount of money and time that it takes is insane in these things. But we got shows in her, and hopefully we did no shows last year. So hopefully by the back end of this year, we'll be able to go to some shows, and I'll have to put some time and some effort into her. But follow Trixie. She is at Trixie Transporter.
All right, man.
Nice one.
Yeah, we'll catch up with you. I'll speak to you tomorrow.
You will, yeah.
Okay. See you later.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, man. Thanks for listening to this episode of Drummers Only Radio.
You can find us online at www.drummersonly.co.uk.
Drop us a line. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Drummers Only UK.
Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. We're on Apple, Spotify and YouTube.
Any questions? info@drummersonly.co.uk is the email, or if you need leads, it's leads@drummersonly.co.uk.
Thanks again for listening,
and we'll see you next time.